The hand closed around her wrist before she reached the door. Maya froze, not from fear, from the shock of it, because in 3 months inside this house, Sung had never once touched her. "Let her go." Hirin's voice cut across the marble hall like a blade dragged over glass. "Or is my son defending a thief now?" 2 security guards stood behind Maya, close enough that she could feel the heat off their jackets. A cardboard box sat crooked in her arms, half her belongings spilling over the side: a phone charger, a paperback with a cracked spine, a framed photo of her brother David grinning at a graduation he almost didn't make it to. Sung didn't look at his mother. He was looking at Maya's wrist, at his own hand wrapped around it, like he was only now realizing what he'd done. "Sung, you're making a scene." "I'm not the one who called security on a woman who's done nothing but clean up after your family for 3 months." The staff lining the hallway, the 2 junior maids, the driver, the head chef who taught Maya how to fold dumplings without tearing the skin, none of them moved. None of them breathed too loud. "She was caught," Hirin said, each word deliberate, "going through my mother-in-law's private study, taking something that did not belong to her. I was cleaning, like I do every Tuesday, like I've done every Tuesday since I started." "With a locked box in your hands." "That fell open when I was dusting the shelf. I didn't take anything. I found something. There's a difference, and you know it." For half a second, something flickered across Hirin's face. Not guilt, recognition. A door she thought she'd locked years ago, swinging open again. Then it was gone. "Escort her out." Sung's hand tightened. Not to stop the guards, to keep her there 1 more second, like he needed her to look at him before he lost the chance. She looked. What she saw wasn't guilt, and it wasn't pity. It was a man doing math in his head, trying to figure out how far he was willing to fall for a woman he'd known for 90 days. She pulled her hand free. "Don't, not here, not like this." She walked out the front doors with a box of her things and a photograph she hadn't had time to show anyone, the one that had got her thrown out in the first place. A photograph of a woman who looked like she could have been Maya's mother, standing beside a much younger Misun, on a street Maya would have sworn was somewhere in Atlanta. 3 months earlier, none of this existed. Maya's mother's medical bills were climbing faster than her paycheck at the Atlanta hotel, where she'd worked front desk for 4 years. Her brother David had gotten into a program that could change his life, if she could cover what the scholarship didn't. A recruiter had messaged her out of nowhere, international placement, luxury household staff, 6 figures, housing included. People who grew up the way Maya grew up learn early that too good isn't always a warning. Sometimes it's just the first time somebody's finally paying attention. "You're seriously thinking about Korea?" Marcus had asked, stirring sugar into coffee he never drank. "It's about David's tuition. It's about Mom's next surgery." She caught herself before the rest came out. "It's about being tired of being the one who holds everything up." "You've never even met these people." "I've met people like them my whole life. I know exactly what the job is." What she didn't know was that invisible doesn't stay invisible forever. Not once someone starts noticing things. The gates outside Seoul stood tall enough that Maya couldn't see the main house from the road. The head housekeeper, Yoon-hee, laid out the rules within the first hour. Don't speak to the family unless spoken to. Don't make eye contact with Madam Hirin unless addressed directly. Keep your head down and your hands busy. What happened to the last girls who worked here? Yoon-hee didn't answer. She just kept walking. Maya met Mi-sun the next morning in the East Garden, a cup of tea going cold in front of her. The old woman looked up, really looked, the way most of the family never bothered to. "You're new." "Yes, Maya." "Where is your family from?" "Atlanta. My grandmother's people were from Georgia going back a long way." Something crossed Mi-sun's face, quick, unreadable, before she smiled and waved Maya on. Maya didn't think about it again until a locked box hit a study floor 3 months later. She met Sung at 6:30 the next morning in a hallway neither of them expected. A door opened without warning. A man walked straight into her path. The coffee tray tipped. His hand shot out and caught the cup an inch before it hit the floor, scalding his own knuckles in the process. "I'm so sorry, I didn't hear the door." "It's fine." He shook the coffee off, more amused than annoyed. "You're new." 3 days. "You're the one Yoonhee's been telling my grandmother about, that you actually talked to her." He studied her a beat too long. "Most people don't." He walked on. That was the whole conversation. Maya told herself it meant nothing. She didn't yet understand that Sung didn't forget things. He filed them away. The mug she preferred over the fine china nobody used. The way she hummed when she thought no one could hear. The 10 unhurried minutes she spent with his grandmother at the end of every round. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been watching for a while, welcome back. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from tonight. I read every one of them. If Maya's story already has its hooks in you, a like and a subscribe means you won't miss what's coming. Now, back to the house. The coffee started 3 weeks later, waiting on the table outside the laundry room exactly where Maya took her 10-minute break. Not the bitter staff coffee, but something from the private lounge's espresso machine, made exactly the way she took it. She'd mentioned it once, in passing, to nobody in particular. She didn't ask who left it. She started looking forward to those 10 minutes more than she wanted to admit. Jaya told her without meaning to, catching Maya mid-fold in the laundry room. "He asked the kitchen staff how you take your coffee. He doesn't usually notice things like that. About anyone." A pause, sharper than the rest. "Be careful. This house has a way of making people forget what they actually are to each other." She left before Maya could ask what that meant. The company gala came 2 weeks later. Maya worked the coat check in a plain black uniform, telling herself she wasn't going to look for him in the crowd. She looked anyway. He found her first, 2 champagne flutes in hand. "I'm working." "I know, I'm making it harder for you. That's the point." He set one glass down instead of pushing it toward her, somehow more deliberate than if he had. "In case you want it later." "Your mother's 20 feet away." "My mother is chasing a merger with the Minister of Trade." "She won't notice anything smaller than a stock price for 2 hours. A beat. "Why do you keep doing that? Noticing me when you don't have to." Something shifted in his face, caught at something he hadn't meant to let show. "Would you rather I stopped?" "I'd rather you told me the truth." His voice dropped, pitched only for her. "The truth is I've spent my whole life being told exactly what I'm supposed to want. This is the first time in years I've wanted something nobody assigned me." Hirin's voice rang out, summoning him by title. He was gone before either of them could say more, the champagne glass sitting untouched on the counter, and Maya's heart doing something she refused to name. 3 nights later, a storm knocked the power out across the east wing. Maya was sent to check the fuse box in the garden shed, flashlight in hand, rain soaking through her jacket. She didn't hear Sung behind her until he was already pulling the shed door shut against the wind. "You shouldn't be out here alone. Someone has to fix the fuse." "Someone who isn't you." He took the flashlight, certain, not rough, and crouched at the panel. Water dripped from his hair onto his collar. "You didn't have to come out here." "I know, I came anyway." There wasn't much room in the shed. When he stood, they were close enough that she watched him stop thinking about the fuse box entirely. His eyes dropped to her mouth. His jaw tightened, like he was holding a door shut against his own weight. "Maya. Don't start something you're going to apologize for tomorrow." "Is that what you think this is?" "I think you go back inside that house every night, and I go back to a room the size of a closet, and tomorrow morning your mother looks at me like I'm furniture again. Be careful what you start out here." He didn't argue. He reached out slowly enough that she could have stopped him, and didn't, and tucked a piece of wet hair behind her ear, his fingers barely grazing her skin. Lightning cracked. The shed door blew open behind them, and whatever he'd been about to say scattered into the wind and Yoonhee's voice calling both their names from the house. He stepped back first. The fuse is fixed, not an answer to anything. They walked back 12 feet apart, both soaked, both thinking about the 12 inches that had existed between them in the shed. He was colder the next week, not cruel, just distant, A wall built brick by a man who didn't trust himself not to knock it down otherwise. The coffee still came, but earlier now, before she was even awake to see who left it. She called David that week, back against her bed, the Atlanta afternoon bleeding through the phone. "You sound tired." "I'm fine." "Maya." "There's someone here." She said it fast, ripping off a bandage. "And it's stupid because nothing can happen. You've spent your whole life taking care of everybody else. If something good is standing in front of you, you're allowed to want it." She didn't have an answer for that. She threw herself into work instead, extra shifts, the parts of the house nobody wanted, including the third-floor study that had belonged to Sung's late grandfather. Dust undisturbed for years. A box wedged behind a row of old ledgers slipped from her hands, the rusted lock giving way on impact. Photographs slid across the floor. One stopped her cold. Two young women in front of the old Atlanta textile mill, one unmistakably a young Misun, the other black, tall, sharp-eyed, a smile that hit Maya somewhere she couldn't name. On the back, careful handwriting, a name Maya knew. A name spoken at her grandmother's funeral 7 years ago, a friend from decades back who'd helped her grandmother out of a bad situation, a friendship that ended when the letters stopped coming. Her hands weren't steady. The math wasn't adding up, how her grandmother's face, 25 years younger, ended up locked in a box on the other side of the world. The study door opened behind her. "What do you think you're doing?" Maya scrambled up, photograph still in hand. "The box fell, I wasn't." "That box has been locked for 40 years. Hirin's eyes moved from Maya's face to the photograph and back, and for one unguarded second, fear crossed her expression before it hardened into fury. "Put it down." "There's a name on the back, I think." "Get security." 20 minutes later, Maya stood at the front gates with her box of belongings and a photograph she hadn't had the chance to explain, watching security close the doors on the only place here that had ever felt like it might want her in it. She didn't cry. She'd promised herself a long time ago she wouldn't give anyone that satisfaction. Sung caught the gate before the guards could shut it. "Maya, wait." "For what?" "For you to tell me it's complicated, that your hands are tied. I've heard that before, from men with a lot less to lose than you. I'm trying to stop you from leaving before I can fix this." "You can't fix this. Your mother just had me thrown out over a photograph she recognized the second she saw it. Whatever's in that box, it's not about a rule I broke. It's about something she's been hiding for 40 years, and I know it." He didn't answer, couldn't, not with the guards watching, not with Yoon-hee in the doorway, not with his own mother's silhouette visible in the third-floor window. And Maya understood, watching him fail to find the words, that some part of him already knew more than he was letting on. "Text me when you figure out which side you're actually on. Until then, don't come looking for me." She turned toward the road, box heavy in her arms, phone buzzing with a message from David. She didn't answer it yet. She looked back once, just before the trees swallowed the driveway, at the light still burning in the third-floor study, at the shape of someone standing there who hadn't moved. Real quick, welcome to everyone just finding this story tonight, and thank you to everyone who's been with Maya since the beginning. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing how far this reaches. If this one's got you invested, like it and subscribe so the next part lands in your feed the moment it's up. Now let's see what Sung does next. Sung didn't go back inside right away. He stood at the gate long after the taillights of Maya's taxi disappeared down the hill, until Yoon-hee finally came out and told him, gently, that his mother wanted to see him. He found Hirin in her office, the locked box sitting open on her desk, photographs spread out like evidence in a trial only she understood. "Tell me about the woman in the photograph." "There's nothing to tell." "There's clearly something to tell, or you wouldn't have had a woman thrown out of this house over a torn corner of paper." He picked up the photo, his grandmother, 25 years younger, laughing beside a woman he'd never seen in his life. "Grandmother knows her. I saw it on her face, the day Maya mentioned Atlanta." Hirin's hands went still on the desk. "Ask your grandmother, then, if you think she'll tell you anything I haven't." He did exactly that. He found me son in the garden that same evening, the photograph in his jacket pocket, and set it on the table between them without a word. His grandmother looked at it a long moment. Then she said a name, the same name written on the back, and her eyes filled before she could stop them. She was the only person who ever helped me when I had nothing, and your mother made sure I never spoke of her again. Why? Because of what your grandfather did to earn what this family has, and because that woman's family has every right to what we took from her. Me son looked up at him, steady despite the tears. The girl you just watched walk out that gate, ask her grandmother's name. Sung sat back like the ground had shifted under him. He didn't sleep that night. By morning, he had a name, an address in Atlanta pulled from an old employment file Yoonhee wasn't supposed to have kept, and a decision he hadn't fully made yet but could already feel taking shape. The kind of decision that would cost him the inheritance, the merger, and possibly his mother, the moment he made it out loud. Maya, 4,000 miles from the only home in Seoul that had felt like anything, sat on the floor of Marcus's spare room with the photograph in her lap, staring at a face she now understood far better than she had that morning. Her phone buzzed, a message from a number she didn't recognize, a Seoul area code. I know who you are. I know what my family did to yours. I'm coming to Atlanta. She read it 3 times before she let herself believe it was really him. She didn't answer right away. She wasn't ready to know yet whether wanting him back was forgiveness, or just the same old habit of hopping a man would finally choose her out loud. One more thing before we go. Whether you've watched every part of this story or you're only just arriving tonight, welcome, and thank you for being here. Let me know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. It's one of my favorite parts of doing this. If you want to see whether Sung actually gets on that plane, like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you for what happens when he lands. What would you have done in her place? Answered that text immediately, or made him wait the way she made him wait? This story isn't finished, not even close.